thank you to everyone who is watching us around the world. A special note of appreciation to the colleagues from Barnett Waddingham joining us today. Barnett Waddingham is the corporate patron of the mentoring program, and we are very grateful for their support. I'm very excited for our chat today, and we have another stellar panel with us. If you haven't had a chance to watch the previous fireside chats in our series, I'd strongly encourage you to. Our opening chat in October was on community, communication, and connection. And our second in January was on the public interest and social impact. Both of those are available on the IFoA Foundation's YouTube channel. Our theme today, though, as you can see on the screen, is leading ourselves, others, and organizations. And I'm so glad to be chairing this chat. I'm Bradley Shearer, the founder of Protagion. We run the Aspiring Actuaries Mentoring Program for the Foundation, and we're especially hoping that this topic will inspire the Foundation's mentees and beneficiaries to keep developing and growing. It's great to see a number of our mentees with us today as well. Hi, Opio and Anil. Just looking down the list. Kuziv is also there. Missed a few of you as well, I'm sure, but great to see you. Thank you for joining us today. I'll introduce each of our three guests as we go, and hopefully you can see us all on the screen. If you're here with us live, please also do add your questions to the Zoom Q&A. You should be able to see what other people have asked as well and upvote the questions you particularly like. I'll try my best to weave them into our conversation, and if we don't get to all of them today, the Foundation will aim to respond separately. We have Holly from the Foundation here with us as well, so she might be responding to some of the questions via the chat functionality as well. Our first guest today is Marjorie Ngwenya, one of Protagion's coaches. She's very passionate about personal growth, as you will hear from the way she talks later. Marjorie is also an independent non-executive director and a non-profit trustee, and she manages a portfolio career across countries and disciplines. She's joining us from the United States today. So very early morning for Marjorie. Good morning.
Morning.
My opening question for you, please, Marjorie, building on your work as a leadership and life coach, what are the most important aspects of leadership in your experience?
Thanks, Bradley. I would say three things. So firstly, effective leadership hinges on the ability to listen, and that goes beyond just hearing. People feel valued when their perspective is taken into account, not just to be rebutted, but to be understood. And in teams where leaders listen, it encourages members to voice their ideas and their opinions where they may not otherwise feel inclined to do so. Secondly, appreciating that team members and colleagues are more than just their work. They are multifaceted individuals, and leaders who invest time in understanding their team members' interests and strengths and challenges can tailor their support and guidance more effectively. And importantly, align work and responsibilities with interest and purpose. So ultimately, this not only boosts morale, but enhances their job satisfaction and in turn, retention. And lastly, I'd say acting in the interest of the collective good, even when it's difficult. Leaders who consistently act in the best interest of their team or their organization, even when it's challenging, inspire loyalty and respect. It's so easy to get caught up in personal ambitions at the cost of others. We see this at the national leadership level as well, time and time again. So really not an uncommon.
Right, thank you, Marjorie. Lots of food for thought there, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later as well, and people have more questions on that too. Building on your response there, Marjorie, I know you have a framework that you've written about in a recent book about mindset, meaning, and momentum. Could you tell us a bit more about that framework, please?
Sure. So mindset explores the power of your thoughts, your beliefs, and your attitudes, and it reveals how they can empower or hinder your progress. And it's about learning how to challenge limiting self-beliefs and building unshakable confidence and cultivating a positive self-image overall. The meaning part is about the significance of connecting with your purpose, your values, your passions, and discovering that why, the reason behind you doing everything, gives you a sense of direction and adds meaning to all the aspirations that you pursue. And then lastly, momentum recognizes that success will remain an elusive dream without action. So this is about the practicalities of translating inspiration into tangible action and taking consistent steps towards your goals. So turning your aspirations into achievements.
So if anyone hasn't read Marjorie's book, it's a great read. So I strongly encourage you to have a look for it. She goes into a lot more detail, obviously, on those three aspects. So thank you, Marjorie. The meaning part, I think it links to one of your comments earlier about leadership and recognizing that our colleagues are multifaceted, interests and purpose that we each have. So
Yes.
Strong connection, I think, between those three elements and your views on leadership as well. So thank you. One shining example of your own leadership, Marjorie, is your presidency of the IFoA, Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, in 2017-2018 in the actuarial sphere. Could you share your reflections on that stewardship with us? It's a number of years ago, but your reflections on that experience, and including how it shaped you in your own leadership journey.
Yeah, it was a while back, but it feels more recent than that somehow. I really enjoyed my time as president, although it wasn't without its challenges, and not least because I was living in South Africa at the time and spending most of that year living out of my suitcase. I really enjoyed connecting with members across the globe and building relationships with other actuarial membership bodies. And I did have some interesting leadership challenges during that time. During my term, we undertook a governance review, which sounds rather similar to ongoing times. And we had several changes in key personnel. And all of that came with a series of very difficult conversations with council, with individuals, and beyond that. And while it was tough at the time, I came out of it with the reinforced notion that service of the greater good has to be put at the core of those difficult choices when they arise. And I came out of it realizing the importance of having support when you're going through such a difficult time, having people you can bounce ideas off and people who can essentially give you perspective when you're in the midst of something. Alignment with personal values is incredibly important too. And it matters a lot to me that I'm able to sleep at night as a result of the choices I've made. So that really guided me through that period. And I think I learned a lot about myself and about leadership as well through that time. Thank
you, Marjorie. I think it's a great opportune time to introduce Kartina Tahir Thomson to the conversation as well. Kartina will shortly become the 2024-2025 president. As you mentioned, Marjorie, some governance changes as well underway at the moment. So Kartina is also the past chair of the IFoA Foundation, and she cares deeply about inclusion, social mobility, and education. Hello, Kartina.
Hi there.
My opening question for you, please, Kartina. What are you looking forward to during your term as president of the IFoA?
Yeah, thank you, Bradley, and thank you for having me here today. Hello, everyone. It's interesting that Marjorie, the first thing Marjorie said about reflection on her presidency was meeting members, and I'm actually looking forward to that, to meeting members, meeting students, current and potential members, and engaging with them, right? Understanding their hopes and dreams and how IFoA can help achieve those dreams. So it's useful kind of to kind of dovetail that into the theme that I'll have for my presidential term, which is ensuring a sustainable future for the next generation of actuaries. So it really brings in my passion from the IFoA Foundation, but also kind of what I want to do around kind of the vision of the IFoA. So thinking around how particularly we support kind of the next generation of actuaries. So on that, I'm particularly interested in hearing from younger demographics, younger members, early careers, on what you want and what you need from us at the IFoA. Because we really do need to ensure the relevance, our relevance in the future. So where do we want to play in? What domain do we want to be involved in? I think the actuarial skill set is very transferable. And it requires that mindset to kind of try new things and things like that. So so how can we support you in doing that? And another thing that I want to do, and I'm looking forward to doing, is celebrating our members and volunteers. So at any one time, there's around 4,000, that's around 12% of members that volunteers for the profession, for the IFOA. And this is quite high. This is very high, actually. So we must make sure that we support, we appreciate members, and making sure that how they deal with IFOA is positive, and making sure that they have a good experience with the IFOA, and saying thank you, so appreciating people. So that's what I'm looking forward to, Bradley.
Great, thank you, Kartina. The bit about celebrating successes, right, is something that I know Marjorie is also a big fan of in terms of personal momentum and achieving goals too. So that's great to hear. And the program here that we are supporting aspiring actuaries through the foundation with, it fits very much with your theme about the future generations, and hopefully all of the mentees on this year's program feel inspired by those views as well, and looking forward to making a difference to the collective good as well. So thank you, Kartina. I'd like to explore a little bit more about the foundation itself. And you, as I mentioned, were the chair previously, so you led the foundation. Could you tell us more about that experience and also the progress that the foundation has made over time? Please, Kartina.
Yeah, Bradley, I don't know how long you have, but I mean, you can tell from my passion and my reaction. I love the foundation. We started early 2020. And I remember the first time we met was in the offices in London, in our home in Staple Inn. And it was a group of us, a bunch of actuaries and executives who were the trustees, where we were all selected individually to be part of the foundation. And it's a privilege, right, to start it. Originally, the foundation was set up to consolidate the 3 charitable funds that we have. And they were already earmarked for some awards, and that's about it, actually. So when it was originally done, I don't think anybody thought that it is what it is today. So I think people thought that the trustees were going to be relatively passive, and we were just a custodian of the aggregated funds. And of course, how wrong they were, right? So we had great ambitions to be impactful. We treated it like a startup. We come up with strategic objectives, as you know, Bradley, around rewarding excellence, supporting our community, and addressing future challenges. And those are the 3 North Stars for the foundation, really. And I remember creating the 3-year plans and creating work streams, creating funds, setting up grants, scholarship, mentorship, school engagements, all the fun stuff that you see today. So what you see today is basically the culmination of the vision that the trustees and I had in 2020. It was hard work, but we linked up with a lot of people like yourselves, like Andrew, and it's great. And what you see today is, us trying to make an impact for students, for the next generation of actuaries coming into the profession. And just some stats here for you is, since inception, we've given around 144 scholarships and grants. We've kind of had mentorship over 100 people, and we've connected with schools as well as school students. So around over 20,000 school students benefited from the impact that we have.
Your impact reports are fantastic, right? So if anyone on the call hasn't had a chance to read them, please do. the foundation has a global impact. One of the things we incorporated into this year's Aspiring Actuaries Mentoring Program was involving alumni from previous cohorts in as almost big sisters, right, for the program. So that was great to see, and looking forward to much great work in the future as well. Anyone on the call inspired to donate to the foundation, please do. There will be a QR code at the end for you to do that as well. So lots of great work from the foundation. So thank you, Kartina. You mentioned Andrew, so I'd like to bring Andrew into the conversation as well. He's our third guest, obviously, and he's an ambassador for the IFoA Foundation, and he also co-founded the Fullerton-Long Caribbean Scholarship Program with Norbert Fullerton. So welcome, Andrew. My opening question for you: what inspired you to work with the foundation, please, and to give back to the Caribbean region and other regions?
Okay. Thanks, Bradley. It probably, the focus is, if I tell you our backstory, then you'll understand our motivation. So Norbert and I, we grew up in Jamaica, went to the same high school, same first degree in terms of university. We went up for the same scholarships. In fact, we both lost a certain scholarship and we both won a certain scholarship to come to the UK. We studied at the same university, ended up in the same profession and in the same city. Now, the probability of that is really, really small. And so we got together one day and decided that it was our turn to give forward. And we started a scholarship, one each, focused in Jamaica, to actuarial students. So that was 2020. The following year, we saw the work of the foundation and approached them to join forces to expand our footprint. And on the back of that, we moved from 2 scholarships in 2020 to 5, but now covering Jamaica and Trinidad, which is where the 2 actuarial centers are based in the Caribbean. And so we've done that now for 3 years. So there's been 17 fantastic scholars over that time frame. And we recently worked again with the foundation to expand that program to the UK and Ireland. And so the plan going forward is 9 scholars per year spread across those territories for individuals of Caribbean heritage. Why Caribbean heritage? It's reflecting who we are. It's also reflecting that the foundation and the profession needs to have a global footprint. And when we look around, we see which demographics are strongly represented and which demographics need support. And that's why we've targeted our giving in this way. In partnering with the foundation, there are certain benefits which you can't get if you go it alone. So there's the publicity, there's the fantastic administration. There is the ability to reach out to sponsors to say, here's a reputable organization that we're working with, that is an approved charity, that can do all the work with you and the due diligence with you so that you can do good. And then it gives us strong access to partners so that we can expand our footprint. So it's great, the stuff that we're doing as individuals, but in terms of reach and impact, working with the foundation has been absolutely critical.
Great, thank you. Anything, Kartina, you'd like to add there in terms of your foundation's collaboration with Andrew?
I mean, it's crucial that we partner with people like Andrew and Norbert. And actually, Andrew and Norbert, I think Andrew's underestimating kind of the impact that he has. Actually, he's done a fantastic job, reaching to the region and growing the actuarial profession. And I don't think on our own, foundation could have done it without Andrew and Norbert.
It's an indication of the power of collaboration as well, which we'll touch on again later. But thank you both for that. One of the things I love about the work the foundation does is just how global it is. So, for example, on the Aspiring Actuaries Mentoring Program, we've got mentees from across Africa, multiple countries: Malawi, Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa. We've got people from Nepal as well, India, people in the UK, people in China. And there's many other countries I'm sure I've forgotten, but the spread and reach is very, very good, and bodes well for the future for the profession as well. Thinking with your points earlier, Kartina, about developing the next generation. Just a reminder, people on the call, if you can type your questions into the Q&A so we can pick them up for the panelists as well. I don't see anything come through yet, but I've still got a few more questions of my own. So you've got a few more minutes to type stuff in if you'd like to ask our distinguished panelists for their views on things. I'd like to chat a little bit about, given the theme of today, leading ourselves, others, and organizations. I'd like to talk a bit about how we might lead ourselves, please. So any thought from the panel members about how we can do this, including any tips that have helped you in your own self-leadership? Marjorie, if we could start with you, please.
Sure, thank you. I would say know what your values are, and more importantly, recognize when they're being violated and when something doesn't sit right with you. Relatedly, understand your boundaries. Where do you draw your lines? And remember that it's your responsibility to guard them. Also value yourself, because when you don't, anything goes at any cost. I think it's vital to check in with yourself from time to time. I find it helpful to take time for myself on a regular basis and just have conversations with myself about whether I am in internal alignment with everything that I'm involved in, and whether I'm deriving true pleasure out of my activities, or whether I believe I'm just going with the flow or doing what I'm supposed to do. So I think that time with oneself is so critical for steering yourself in the right direction, or at least in the direction you want to be going.
Andrew, Kartina, would you like to add?
Yeah, I would expand on Marjorie's points around values, is around having the people around you to make sure that you stay on your values. So almost having your own board of directors where they know what your objectives are, they know what your strategy is, and they can provide that oversight if you want to kind of find the parallel there. But having the people that you trust around you is, I think, crucial in terms of staying in that course and making sure that your values are, you are acting to your values.
And building on what Marjorie and Kartina has said, years ago I found a fantastic article called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. And essentially, it guides you to take 4 actions when you're doing your self-reflection. One is know what your superpowers are and literally flog them to death. That's what's going to make you successful. Secondly, know what you need to stop doing. And that could be that you've outgrown it, or that actually you're not good at it and you're wasting energy trying to be good at it. Find somebody else who's good at it to partner with. That's the best way to get around that. Third is, what do you start doing? So in your journey to be better, to have a bigger footprint, what are the things that are missing from your arsenal that you can add, that you can learn, etc.? And then last but not least, what can you improve? There's certain things where you're at the B game level that you can bring to the A game level by sharpening and practicing, etc. And those are the 4 things that you need to do. I probably read that article 3-4 times a year just to check in, recalibrate, refocus, and it's been critical to the career that I've had today.
Definitely, we'll look it up and read it. Some great tips there, Andrew. Thank you very much. You mentioned strengths quite a bit there, and focusing on what we're good at and getting better at those. Marjorie, as a coach, any thoughts on strengths and how we can make the most of them?
Absolutely. I think an important part of the journey of becoming a successful individual or professional, or even in your personal life, is learning. And I love the way that Andrew expressed it. You have to understand yourself, understand what you're good at and what you're not, and understand where you want to develop. And so almost mapping out your personal development journey and aligning that with the goals and aspirations that you have for your life. If you're looking to be, for example, I don't know, a chief data scientist somewhere, that starts with understanding that domain. It starts with acquiring those skills. And if you're unclear about where you want to go and unclear about your own ability to get there, then it's going to be a very winding journey. It could be a lot more straightforward.
Thank you. I love Kartina's suggestion on a board of directors as well, and a support network around you. I think you refer to them sometimes as accountability partners, Marjorie, as well. People who have your best interest at heart will challenge you on things that you said you would work on, but do it from a space of kindness and support. So it's great to see that you're using that in your careers, very successful careers as well. Thank you. Another topic I'd like to chat about is volunteering. So we touched on it a little bit earlier, but that's one of the ways we can both develop our skills and have an impact. Could the panel members share some extra examples of professional volunteering that you've been involved in? Obviously, two of you have been or will shortly be president, so that's one example, but other kind of examples as students or as qualified actuaries, and what you learned from those experiences, please.
Happy to kick off.
Thank you.
So I've done a variety of things. I started as a features editor many years ago, and then became the overall editor of the Actuary magazine. I was an exam guinea pig, which I really enjoyed, an assistant examiner, and fast forward to recent times, I participated on the panel that recruited the new IFoA board, and prior to that, the new government actuary. I've been involved in member interest groups, a practice board. I've done lots of tutoring, mentoring, served in the Worshipful Company of Actuaries, and of course, council and the presidency. So I started as a student who clearly didn't have enough on her plate with the exams. And I realized that I found fulfillment in giving back to the profession and in wider spheres as well, because I'm involved with charitable organizations as well. And I just find joy in sharing what I'm able to do or participating in the goals of institutions that are doing good. I really enjoy meeting people, and I would not otherwise have had the opportunity to meet and above all learn new things and be in new environments if I hadn't volunteered. I loved being on the editorial team for the Actuary. It was hugely educational for me, and I'm sure influenced my desire to write my own book in the end. And the tutoring allowed me to spend time in very interesting places like Armenia and Kenya and Zimbabwe and Nigeria, to name a few. So I owe volunteering a lot.
Great examples there, Marjorie, and it shows your dedication to the profession and wider areas over many years. So and as you described, right, you can start small and get involved in little areas, and I hope that the mentees will do that as well. Also, passing exams, obviously very important. So don't sacrifice the exam passes to volunteer too much, but getting involved will be good. Andrew and Kartina, any reflections from your side on volunteering?
Andrew, do you want to go first?
Yes, if I take this one, okay. So the niche of volunteering that I've fallen into, or I seem to have a passion for, is around mentoring. And so be it with the scholarship, so we don't just give money, we lean into the students, we meet with them regularly, we have conversations, there's a welcome to the scholarship post-discussion, there is mentoring throughout, and at the end of the scholarship, there is a hand you over to other supporting bodies that are out there to take their careers forward. And I think the key thing with that aspect is your ability to influence lives. It's the ability to see an actuary hidden in someone that you can bring into the profession. It's seeing talent that just needs a little push, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of direction, a little bit of support to really blossom and do much better. And that could be within the scholarship program or at work. I play sports as well, so that comes into play. So leaning into individuals, getting to know them, finding out what makes them tick, finding out what their needs are, listening, truly listening, and then being able to influence them, guide them, but respecting their right to make the choices that are right for them. And so that's where that's where I get my juice from, that's where I get my energy from. And that's the aspect of mentoring and guiding that I tap into.
some great parallels there, Andrew, with what you said to what Marjorie started with about the definition of leadership and what makes someone a leader. So excellent. Thank you, Andrew, for those suggestions. Kartina?
Yeah, I mean, I think Andrew and Marjorie has covered quite a lot. I would kind of go back to what I said earlier, which is as an organization, IFOA, we really rely on volunteers. We can't run it without volunteers, right? So I mentioned over 4,000 people volunteer at any one time, and we're a 33,000 member organization. So that's a lot when you compare with other membership organization. But picking up on Marjorie's and Andrew's point as well, it's very rewarding. I actually learn a lot and different skill sets when volunteering compared to kind of my other roles, executive roles and non-executive roles. So I really encourage everybody to do it. I would probably pick up, Bradley, on your point around, you said start small. I don't think there's any role that's small. You will make an impact no matter the size of the volunteering that you do. So I actually started, I wasn't brave enough like Marjorie starting during when I was a student. I started right after I qualified. Writing papers, so work in working parties, in technical working parties, just to kind of get involved in the thinking around the technical aspect of our work. And then I got involved in the International Association, so the Actuarial Association of Europe, where again, you meet people from different regions that perhaps have the same issues, thinking about the same issues, the same actuarial issues that you do, but in a slightly different way. So I learn a lot from that as well. And then of course, in council, get involved in quite a lot of different working groups and things like that. And you know, Bradley, you mentioned the IFoA Foundation, which is very rewarding in itself. So things like mentorship, meeting new people, meeting you know, the next generation and things like that. That's really, really rewarding.
Thank you. I see there's a question that's coming from one of our mentees in the chat itself. So I don't think the audience can see it. So I will try and read it out. Yeah, just a reminder, people, if you can put your questions into the Q&A. I don't know if it's working, hopefully it is. But Kaziva's question is, in regards to preparing for aspiring actuaries taking on management or leadership roles in future, how might you prepare for that? So where you'll be an actuarial student without exposure yet for management roles. So before you've got your first leadership or management role, what could you do to prepare? Excellent question, Kaziva. So let's hear from the panelists.
Shall I start, Bradley?
Yes, please, Kartina.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. I think you can't start early enough in terms of getting experience, really. And I think there's formal management roles, but also there's informal, and you can always get into the informal ones, like, you know, supporting your colleague in doing, you know, doing their work, for example, and having you know, being a buddy, for example, in your organization, right? For people who just started, for example. So there's always opportunities to do broader management skill stuff in your current role. I would also don't be shy to speak to your managers, people around you in terms of looking for that opportunity as well, because there's always opportunities to perhaps take a broader role within your department, for example, organizing team meetings and working with the senior management, even producing MIs and things like that. So there's always opportunity to get that skill set.
I think volunteering is one of the ways, right, to outside of your day job as well, get exposure and learn from and see how other leaders act, and try and learn what you can from that, stuff that you should do and stuff that you shouldn't do as well. So thank you, Kartina. Marjorie, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think I agree with what Kartina has said. Put your hand up and ask for those opportunities. You've got to be able to demonstrate your capabilities, so showcase what you're capable of. And volunteering is a great way to do that, and then draw parallels between what you're able to do outside the workplace and the responsibilities you have internally as well. As Kartina says, step up to those responsibilities so you can act as if you are already a manager. How would a manager approach that situation? Well, they might take a little bit more responsibility than I'm currently taking by expecting XYZ to be done by somebody else. And then I would also learn and observe, watch the people that you're aspiring to become and see how they operate. What are the skills that they have? Ask them how they got to where they are and what you might need to develop yourself to step into that next role.
Anything to add, Andrew, in your experience with leading your teams?
So I guess one of the aspects is there are different types of leadership. There's leadership from the front, which seems to be quite directive, etc. There is leadership within the team by example, by encouragement, by guidance. And it's important to understand the group you're in and understand the type of leadership that is necessary. And also to sense check that what you think is leadership, which might be a dictator, etc., might not be leadership. That might be the wrong thing for that forum. Instead, collaboration, a lot of discussion, getting everyone moving together might be the better leadership for that group. So learn the group you're in, learn the tasks that you have to do, and learn the leadership that's necessary for those circumstances.
And sometimes, as you're describing, Andrew, it's about influence, right? And the outcome the team is trying to achieve, and you don't necessarily have to be the one, whipping everyone into shape, right? Because they might not appreciate that.
I would argue that's not leadership. That's a completely different show.
That's dictatorship. Yes. There's also linking on your point about different forms of leadership. There's also like technical leadership, sometimes referred to as thought leadership. So we might do some technical research, maybe in a working party, and lead the profession or the organization forward because we've discovered a new algorithm, for example, or a new way of implementing technology. So that's also a form of leadership as well, which especially the newer members to an organization who've studied that stuff more recently might spot those opportunities more easily as well. So thank you.
And Brad, if I could just add to that point, if you are one of the first people in your organization to embrace the new, so for example, AI and actuarial work, imagine you're the first person to do that. Roll the clock forward 2 or 3 years, you're going to be leading the AI team. So a big tip is to be one of the first, to take it on, to dive deep, to see the art of the possible, and then you can be a leader of that team as it develops. So I think that's a very important point.
Leading the way forward, right? Yes. And as you say, you're one of the first people to run that new functional team, right? If it succeeds. So great. There was a question as well, which I think Holly from the foundation has answered. I hope the audience members can see it, but just for people on catch up, the question was about how we could get involved with the foundation, and whether there's any volunteer roles. So Holly mentioned we have a number of amazing volunteers working with us. She gave a link to the IFoA Foundation webpage, which is actuaries.org.uk/about-us/IFoA-foundation. Anyone interested, and you can sign up to the newsletter as well. Also follow the foundation on LinkedIn. Lots of great content there. And then there was an email address that they provided as well, which was foundation@actuaries.org.uk, about ways to get involved. So hopefully that's helpful, and great to see that there's more people looking to get involved with the foundation. So thank you. Thank you very much for that question. Another question, please, for all three panelists. So one aspect of leading organizations, whether commercial organizations or professional organizations or philanthropic organizations, which all of you have been involved in, one of the aspects of that is collaborating. So we touched on this a little bit earlier. What are your perspectives on collaboration across disciplines and organizations, please?
Happy to go. Collaborating across disciplines and organizations is an absolute must, not least from a learning perspective, but also acknowledging that optimal solutions to problems benefit from more than one perspective and the synergies that are generated by multiple skill sets. I have learned a lot from other professionals, from accountants, from lawyers, fundraisers, from marketers, especially marketers. So I'm a big fan of multidisciplinary teams, and I have been exposed to a much greater array of knowledge than I would have if I just stayed in my field.
Your answer there, Marjorie, reminds me of the More Than an Actuary article that we wrote for the Actuary magazine a few years ago. So anyone who hasn't read that, if you're interested more on Marjorie's views there, I'd encourage you to look at the Actuary magazine, which, as Marjorie mentioned, she was an editor for many years ago as well. So all these links across time. That's great. Yes. Great to see. Thank you, Marjorie. Andrew, Kartina?
So I agree with Marjorie. It's an absolute must, and I think it's the only way that you can minimize your blind spot, first of all, but also you can get that diversity of thought in terms of talking about what could happen, or what are the things that we should be considering, and things like that. And you also broaden or share the workload, right? So when you have collective accountability and collaboration, you almost have that cohesiveness and working together to kind of go in kind of one direction. And I think it's quite important for any work actually to be collaborative.
And to add to that, I think it's important to realize no organization or individual can do everything. And so the partnerships can cover the entire journey. And to bring it to life, if you imagine a high school student of Caribbean heritage who's never heard about the actuarial profession, the IFoA starts that conversation with high school seminars. Then there are scholarship programs that take you through sixth form into university. Then we're now offering scholarships that they can apply to, which then exposes them to mentors, experienced actuaries, etc. And through sponsorship with our partners, they can get internships, which then leads to jobs, which then leads to you, Bradley, in terms of mentorship through Protagion, which then leads to further success in the profession. So knowing all these interlinkages and how they fit together is quite key, because one entity with one purpose can't do it alone. So that collaboration is key for the entire journey.
I like the life cycle thinking, Andrew. Great. And it's a very good, useful technique for those writing exams, right? To think about all the different stakeholders impacted and how things shift over time. So hopefully a tip in for the mentees as well. There's a comment in the Q&A as well about the council elections underway. So that's correct. They're underway. So anyone who's able to vote, please strongly encourage you to. That's how we elect our council members and which ultimately influences the choice of president in future as well. So yeah, I'm sure that everyone on the call will echo that to please do use your vote if you are able to vote. So thank you for the person who added that comment. Another question, just maybe for our mentees on the call. So Kartina and Andrew, you both work for the same organization. but you work in different domains within that organization. So it's a big actuarial employer. Andrew, you work in the pensions domain, and Kartina in the insurance risk and governance area. Could you tell us, even though you're working for the same organization, could you tell us a little about the nature of your work, just for the mentees joining us today? Also bearing in mind that Barnett Waddingham, one of the sponsors, does investment consulting, insurance consulting, and pension consulting as well. So it'd be interesting just to hear your views on the nature of work, please.
Sure. I mean, from my perspective, I basically help insurance clients find a solution, help them solve a problem, specifically in risk management, in regulation, and in governance. So, for example, if they want support in how to manage their risks and how to have a formalized approach or framework to how they view risks, then I come in and help with that. I also help with regulatory issues. So, for example, if firms are on the naughty steps with the regulators, then I guide them through the process of having that cohesive relationship with the regulators and making sure that they identify what the regulators actually want from them, and minimize that regulatory risk. So that's basically what I do from a risk management and regulation perspective.
Thanks. Andrew, from a pensions consulting perspective.
Right. So as an actuary in the pensions field, I describe us as the engineers of the pension industry, so to speak. So we design pension funds, we make sure that they run properly. So in terms of how they're funded, how benefits are paid, how they adhere to legislation, and in terms of risk management, how they manage risk, be that passing it on to insurers or hedging the risk themselves, and then guiding them through literally from start date to end date when the last benefit is paid or we pass the risk on to someone else. Lucky enough that I advise in the UK, and one of my clients once said, "You're from Jamaica, go sort out something in the Caribbean." And that led to me advising a lot of companies in the Caribbean as well. I love the trips. And I also do a lot of work with financial services and offshore centers like Jersey, Guernsey, etc. What I find is the training that I've had in UK pensions gives me a strong base from which to advise overseas. And so I approach those territories not thinking that what the UK has taught is the right answer, but just one of many good frameworks you can use. Then you look at the local circumstances, take on board the culture and the issues that you're faced, and construct a local solution. So it's highly enjoyable. I think this is what I was meant to be. And so as a result, it's an area that I truly enjoy as well.
And it just showcases the breadth of opportunities available within the actuarial profession. A very, very different nature of work both of you do, but you can tell both of you are passionate about the areas that you work in as well from a technical perspective. So thank you both. We've got a question from O'Neill, who's one of our mentees as well. His question is about opportunity, and how you would approach opportunities that we receive, both in terms of career and learning, to minimize the opportunity cost, given they all align with our main goal. Can you see that question, and who would like to give it a go?
I'll start. I'll say be open to opportunities, push on those open doors and see where they take you, particularly if you understand where you're trying to get to, and if that opportunity aligns with your end goal, it's even better. Sometimes it's not always obvious how it might, so be curious and take from it the learning that you can, and it's never obvious where that might lead you, but at the very least you're going to learn a new skill, you're going to meet new people and expand your network, and those are always positive things.
I would add to that, take risks, be bold. Even if it's something that you haven't, as Marjorie said, you haven't considered before, and it's very different from what you've done. Have that growth mindset of trying it, even if it fails, dust yourself off, and you know, at the minimum, you'll learn something about yourself. And you'll learn new skills. So, for example, you know, after I qualified, at that time, a lot of people fed back that actuaries need to do a bit more around communication skills. So I joined a brokerage firm where I knew I would learn you know, communications, network, relationship skills in the role, and it was completely different to what I did before, and it was one of the best decisions that I've made around getting new skill sets.
I'd try to learn in unusual and interesting ways. When I was at university, there was a course on color. So pretty much, how do you structure things to take account of color? How do you influence people by the colors you use? And I thought I'll never have any application for this in my working life. Then I met PowerPoint in terms of how we work together and how you express things, the colors you use, the shapes you use, how that can convey messages quite powerfully. And then I started meeting a lot of artists, and they further reinforced the importance of how we use color in communication. Now, my initial thinking is still, or was back then, this will have nothing to do with my day job. And yet, so much of what I do is communication, and that course and how I see things and how I express things, that feeds through all the way. So I think, as well as the formal things you lean into and the formal opportunities that you lean into, be curious, learn unusual things. You just never know when they might fit into the journey that you have ahead. So have a healthy curiosity.
I'd love to learn more about the color view of the world. Andrew, sounds very fascinating, and links a little bit to Marjorie's comments earlier about learning from other disciplines as well, marketing people and legal people, and color experts and artists, right? It's great. So thank you. No other questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to shift into the last segment. But if you do have anything you want to ask before we end, please do type it quickly into the Q&A. So I'm going to ask our guests for their closing thoughts, please, whether on the work of the foundation or on leadership more generally. What would you like to leave our audience with today, please, Kartina?
Thanks, Bradley. I would say, look, you know, grab your opportunity. Be brave. I mentioned this before. Use this mentorship program to your advantage, and optimize what you get from it. Ask questions, ask as many questions as you like, and you'll find a lot of people are just willing and keen to help. So don't be shy. Just ask questions and grab that opportunity.
And Andrew?
Two messages. For those who are able to give, partner with the foundation. Lean into your passion project, be it mentoring, funding, providing jobs, etc., because the impact is you change lives. You allow people to find their career goals, to provide for their families, to be inspirations in their communities, etc. The impact is more than just giving. So for those who can give, please do. For the students coming through, be hungry, be curious, and use the full spectrum of all that's on offer on your journey. We are here to help you. We are further ahead. We're here to help you, but you've got to lean into us so that we can together make the best for you. So those would be my 2 messages.
Thanks, Andrew. Marjorie?
Thank you. So they say leadership is a privilege, and I completely agree. It's a responsibility, and it requires a level of consciousness and selflessness. And we are all leaders of ourselves, so we could start there. If you do have capacity to give back to the profession or to your society in whatever way interests you, please do, whether it's mentoring, marking, working parties, council, give it a go. For those of you at the start of your careers, you are in a wonderful place to design the life you want and to impact others in turn. Completely echo what Andrew said there. Now, remember that there is no formula for success. It is up to you to determine how you want to approach it, what stimulates you, and what you want to be part of your life. I thank you, Bradley. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very inspiring words from all of you. It's been lovely to hear about your experiences as leaders, leading yourselves, leading others, leading organizations, and the impact that you have had and will continue to have, right, on the profession and more broadly around the world. So thank you to my 3 wonderful guests today and to the audience for your questions as well. I'm personally honored to have been involved in the 2023-24 Aspiring Actuaries Mentoring Program. And on behalf of the mentees and the IFoA Foundation, thank you again to Barnett Waddingham for your support. Mentees, beneficiaries, benefactors, donors, ambassadors, please do keep spreading the word about the Foundation's global work and do keep in touch. We're going to show on the screen now, hope you can see that, just a QR code if you'd like to donate to the Foundation, and then that link that we mentioned earlier. If I said it too quickly, you can see it on the screen. So I'll just leave it up for a few more minutes before we formally close. But no other questions from the audience yet, so feel free to drop off when you'd like to. Thank you very much, everyone, for your involvement today. It's been great to chat to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.